The main journey. It was early morning in the Fern Valley, very early. The kind of early when the moon was still brushing the sky with silver and the birds hadn't yet remembered their songs. A gentle mist curled between the trees like sleepy breath, and every leaf and blade of grass wore a tiny drop of dew, just waiting for the sun to lift it into the sky. In the quietest corner of this green and drowsy world, a young dinosaur was waking up. Tallow, the long-necked Apatosaurus, lifted his head slowly from a bed of soft moss. He blinked once, twice, and stretched his legs, each one steady and sure. His tail gave a slow sweep behind him, brushing across a pile of fallen leaves, stirring up a little whisper of sound. He liked the morning best. It was when everything felt gentle. The air, the light, even the sounds of far-off rivers and sleepy insects. Tallow was not a loud dinosaur. He didn't stomp or roar. He liked things slow, calm. He liked to walk and listen, especially near the tall trees where the shadows were still cool and the ferns grew in thick green bundles that tickled his legs when he walked through. This morning, as the sky turned a pale, yawning blue, Tallow wandered further than he usually did, past the hollow log where the beetles lived, past the rock that smelled like lemony moss, and down into a dip in the land he hadn't explored before. And there it was, a stream, a new one, narrow, soft, and sparkling in the morning light. It wasn't loud. It gurgled gently like a secret being whispered to the forest floor. Little stones lined its edges, and patches of forget-me-nots leaned over the bank as if eavesdropping on the stream's stories. Tallow bent his head and took a careful sip. The water was cool and tasted faintly like pine needles and quiet rain. Then something moved. Not a fast movement, not frightening, just slow, flowing, a curling shape along the low branch of a nearby tree. Tallow froze, his eyes calm and curious. The shape shimmered softly in the sunlight, filtering through the leaves. Scales. Long, smooth scales sliding down the branch like water down a ribbon. A python. She wasn't very big and not very small either. Her body was the color of tree bark in sunshine, deep green with golden speckles. She looked peaceful, coiled in a loose loop, one end of her body hanging down just enough to see the glint of her soft, watching eyes. Tallow tilted his head. The python blinked very slowly. She was not afraid. She had been watching the stream, too. The silence between them wasn't awkward. It was comfortable, like two sleepy clouds passing by in the same patch of sky. Then the python spoke. Her voice was quiet and dry, like a rustling grass. "Do you like this stream?" she asked. Tallow nodded. "It's gentle." "So are you," the python said. They both looked at the water again. "I'm Suma," she added, sliding slightly closer. "I come here when the light is soft. It helps me dream." "I'm Tallow," said the dinosaur, blinking kindly. "May I sit nearby?" The python gave a slow, spiraling shrug. "Of course. Just don't squash my tree." Tallow smiled the way dinosaurs do, just with the smallest breath of joy. He lowered himself gently beside the stream, legs folding beneath him like tree roots settling into soil. And so they sat, listening, not talking too much, not needing to. A dragonfly passed, a toad hopped once and blinked. Somewhere far away, a tree creaked like an old door in a sleepy wind. They talked a little about the weather, and whether turtles dream, and how frogs always sound like they're laughing underwater. And when the sun began to rise too high and the air grew warm and golden, Talo yawned a slow, coily kind of yawn. "I go to sleep now," she murmured, eyes lidding. "I'll come again," Talo promised, his voice as soft as water. And the day slipped on. The stream kept whispering, the trees kept swaying, and so began a new friendship, quiet, steady, and calm as the early morning mist.
A tale from the past. The next morning, just before the sky had fully decided to become day, Talo returned to the stream. The dew was heavier today, and the clouds moved slowly, like thoughtful creatures wandering between the trees. The world was hushed in that special way it only is before breakfast and birdsong. Talo stepped carefully through the ferns, his long tail brushing behind him, his eyes still dreamy from sleep. And there, curled in the low branch of the same tree, was Suma, the golden python. Her eyes opened as he approached, blinking slowly as though time itself was waking up with her. "You came back," she said, her tongue flickering like a whisper. "I brought something," Talo said gently. "A story. I thought maybe you'd like to hear one." Suma gave a soft coil of pleasure and nodded. "I would like that," she replied. "The stream is always hungrier for stories than for frogs." Talo settled down by the water, resting his belly on a patch of warm moss. Then, in his slow and steady voice, he began to share a tale, one that had been passed through ferns and footprints from dinosaur to dinosaur, tree to tree. It happened long ago, before the stream was even a stream, when the land here was covered not in trees, but in winding winds and long, open silence. "There was once a snake," he began. "Not like you, no scales of gold, no warm tree to rest in. This snake was made of wind." Suma blinked. The stream rustled curiously. "Her name," Talo said, "was Silith. She was a wind snake, and her body was endless. She lived in the skies and twisted between the clouds, but no one ever saw her, because she only appeared when no one was watching. She curled behind mountaintops, snuck along the backs of breezes, and slept inside the sighs of trees. She was a quiet protector, not loud like the thunder beasts or bright like the sunbirds. But one day," Talo continued, "there came a problem in the forest. Far away, a river had stopped moving. Something had blocked it, branches, stones, too many fallen leaves. The river grew still. Then it grew sad. The animals who lived by it, tiny mammals and thirsty birds, began to worry. They prayed to the sky, not for rain, not for thunder, just for movement, for flow. And so the wind snake heard. Silith, the great spiral, slipped down from the sky, coiling gently between treetops and rock faces. She moved with such care that not a single twig snapped under her, not a single feather lifted in her breeze. She found the blocked river, sighed once, and uncoiled. One long spiral, from sky to earth, from breath to water. She unwound herself into the streambed, brushing aside the branches and logs without a word. With her softest spin, the river moved again, first in ripples, then in rhythm. and as the creatures came to drink and bathe and sing once more, they never saw her go, for Silith had vanished, leaving only wind in the leaves and the memory of a spiral carved gently into the mud. Tallow paused. The stream trickled beside him. "The elders say," he whispered, "that if you find a perfect spiral in the river sand, Silith passed through that night, just checking in." Suma didn't speak for a long time. Her coils were perfectly still. Only her tongue moved now and then, catching the scent of the air. Then she said, "That story feels like it's wrapped around something." Tallow blinked. "Wrapped around what?" "Comfort, the kind that doesn't shout, just stays near." And for a while, they were quiet again. The story hung in the air like a soft fog, curling gently through the branches. And under the tree, just beside the bank, the stream swirled in a small spiral. Not fast, not big, just enough to wonder. The dreamscape. That night, as the last glimmer of sun slid behind the faraway hills and the stars began blinking open like sleepy eyes in the sky, Tello returned to his resting spot beneath the fern trees. His mossy bed was cool from the breeze, and the leaves above swayed just enough to whisper gentle lullabies. He had spoken to Suma at the stream that morning. They'd sat together in silence again, sharing that hush that only two quiet creatures could truly understand. And now, with the memory of Scylla's story curling through his thoughts like mist, Tallow let his eyes drift shut. Sleep came like a slow fog rolling across the valley, and in his dream, the stream was not a stream, it was sky. Beneath his feet, the ground had become clear and endless. Stars twinkled below him, gentle little fires blinking through a bed of water and glass. Tallow walked slowly, the sound of his footsteps no louder than feathers landing on moss. Each step left behind a swirl, a ripple of silver light that shimmered across the surface of the dream. The trees were floating now, not rooted to earth, but drifting upside down and right side up at once. Their roots dangled in the air like sleepy jellyfish tendrils. Their branches were hung with paper lanterns, soft orbs of color glowing faintly in the warm breeze. Tallow blinked, and there, not far ahead, he saw something moving. A ribbon. No, a snake. Suma? He walked closer and realized it wasn't quite her, but something like her. A dream version, a sky python. She was longer than any creature he'd ever seen, her body made of soft light and gentle shadows, twisting through the dream sky like a silk thread pulled by wind. The great python coiled around moonbeams, her tail dipping into puddles of starlight, her body making spirals that didn't end or begin. She didn't speak with words, but she looked at Tallow, and somehow he knew what she meant. He wasn't in the forest anymore. He was in the memory of the wind, a quiet place that only dreams knew how to find. The sky beneath the river. The clouds were drifting below him now, like lily pads in a nighttime pond. He walked carefully along a bridge made of braided vines and soft light. Fireflies hovered in slow motion, pulsing with a heartbeat he could feel in his own chest. And then he heard it. A sound, not quite music, not quite wind. It was spirals, the sound of things turning gently. He looked up, and there she was, Silith, the sky snake of wind and legend. Her body was made of breeze and cloud, her eyes soft suns, her coils spread across the stars like gentle handwriting. She circled above him, and as she did, the sky dream shimmered like pond water stirred by a leaf. He didn't speak with words, but Tallow heard her in the quiet between thoughts. You are safe. You are seen. Keep your gentleness. Let it spiral. He lowered his head in the dream, bowing in a way, not out of fear, but out of the deepest kind of calm. And then, like all dreams do, this one began to drift, to soften, to blur. The stars folded into each other like sleeping petals. The bridge turned to mist. The python vanished into a warm breeze, and Tallow floated downward, ever so slowly, back to his mossy bed under the gentle leaves of Fern Valley. The cozy corner. The sun rose slow and sleepy over Fern Valley the next morning. Its light was the color of warm milk and honey, touching the tops of the ferns with a glow that made the dew sparkle like little stars clinging to leaves. Birds begin their songs with slow, yawning chirps. Even the trees, in their tall and gentle way, seemed to stretch a little in the breeze. Tallow woke up with the memory of his dream still folded inside him like a soft leaf pressed in a book. He didn't open his eyes right away. He just listened. He heard the rustling of the wind high above, the creak of an old branch swaying, the gentle hush of the nearby stream, always talking, always flowing. And he smiled. He made his way slow and careful back toward the stream, his tail leaving lazy curves in the soft soil, his feet pressing little puddles of still damp moss. The path was quiet, but it didn't feel lonely. It felt like a world just waking up, breathing in the light. When he reached the water's edge, Sumo was already there, curled like a ribbon on her favorite tree branch, her scales catching the sunlight in flecks of soft gold and mossy green. She blinked at him once, then again, slow, patient, the way snakes say hello. Tallow said, "I dreamed of you." But it wasn't you, not really. It was sky and spirals and stars. Suma gave the smallest nod, like a leaf being stirred by a breeze. "Dreams know things we forget," she murmured. Tallow stretched his long neck and dipped it into the stream, taking a slow sip. It was cool and clear and tasted of sky and leaves and memories. They didn't speak for a while after that. They didn't need to. Together, they watched the lantern leaves fall. They were special leaves, broad, flat, and pale yellow, shaped like tiny boats. Every year, just as the warm season began to yawn into the cooler months, these leaves would drift gently from a special tree upstream. They floated down the water like little lights on the surface, like the forest was whispering wishes and sending them away on tiny rafts. Tallow and Suma watched them together. "Do you ever wonder where they go?" Tallow asked, his voice no louder than the rustling grass. Suma said, "Far, but not gone. They become something else. Maybe a nest, maybe a blanket, maybe a part of someone's story." Tallow nodded, watching one particular leaf drift in a small spiral. "I hope they bring calm wherever they land." Suma yawned, a long, slow curl of her body. "And I hope," she added, "someone sees them and knows they were never alone." They stayed that way for a while. The light grew softer. The sun moved behind a veil of thin clouds. The forest made its sleepy sounds, crickets stretching their wings, frogs blinking in thought, trees creaking out lullabies to the breeze. And then something small happened. Tallow stood. He took one step toward the stream's edge, reached out with a gentle front foot, and dipped it just slightly into the flow. A ripple spread, then another. Slowly, he moved one foot in a circle, then another. And soon, he was tracing gentle spirals in the water. Not fast, not for fun, but like a ritual. A goodbye, a hello, a thank you. Suma watched from her branch, her body coiled just right for resting. And just as the first stars blinked open in the dusky sky, Talo curled his long neck, gently lay his body down beside the tree, and let out a sigh deeper than the valley. Suma shifted once, slid down her branch in a lazy coil, and nestled herself in the curve of his side where his body was warm and the moss was thick. They didn't speak again. They didn't need to, because the night was coming in, and the stream whispered lullabies, and the stars blinked gently above, and two quiet friends, so different, so perfectly matched, drifted slowly into the kind of sleep that only comes when the world feels kind, and the wind moves in spirals, and everything soft is safe. And so, under the lantern leaves and the watchful sky, the dinosaur and the python curled together in the hush of night. And the forest, as always, held them both. Good night.